Did we do the show intro or not?
I forgot which way is left and right, and I was trying to do righty-tighty on this thing, and I was turning it left, and I loosened it. I almost broke the brand new thing you bought.
I think that works better as a show intro than hitting any of the buttons we have. What's up, everybody?
We got new arms for mics in here.
Christian Pedersen,
Tommy Morris,
Bodie De Silva.
Noah Alexian is not with us. We miss him. He's putting in the off-season grind. Noah vowed not to come back until what did he say? 22s on his biceps. He wasn't going to come back until he's got like the legit.
So he can beat me in arm
thing.
wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. So what's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of San Diego Prep Insider. It's been a little bit. We want to fill you in kind of as best we can on what's going on, both in terms of our show and high school sports here in San Diego. Bodie De Silva is joining us on behalf of Scorebook Live. They are the official digital content provider of the San Diego CIF section. Bodie, real quick, can you test out the headphones, please? Because we're testing out new equipment, as Tommy clumsily announced via breaking his microphone.
I actually fixed it.
Do your headphones work?
Oh, good.
This is cool, right?
Very cool.
Right,
I was just for the record, I was going to break it, and then I realized I was doing it, and then I fixed it even better than it was before. So I actually helped everybody, so you're welcome.
I'll put it on the poll at SD Prep Insider. Are you sure it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey?
Yeah. I had to put together a desk. I think this was last show. It was when I was going through the desk building process, and I did it. So I knew which way to turn all the screws. So it's pretty good for me. With IKEA, though, they give you a bunch of extra parts that you don't need. Did you know this?
I haven't purchased
You
anything.
don't need all the parts. I just use half of them, and the desk is fine.
Yeah, they actually do. It is weird, though, because it's not like across the board. They just give you one extra of everything. It'll be like 2 extra screws randomly and 1 extra washer. And you're like, oh, I did something wrong.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So I just omitted half the pieces.
Yeah. Well, that's what Gorilla Glue was.
And I
invented for.
didn't read the instructions either. You don't need those either. You can just go ahead and start screwing things into other things.
So, guys, right now, school would be underway. It is September 3rd when we are recording this. We would be in week 0, I think, of the high school football season right now, or we would be in week 1.
Think
Did we do week 0 in San Diego?
There was sort of a week 0 last year.
I don't know. I mean, I've looking at other states. So many states call it week 0, but then other places are calling it week 1.
This would be the second game of the year.
Yeah,
Whatever
I'm
you
in
wanna
agreement
call it.
with that. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, the season would be vaguely underway. So even though we are now still several months from high school sports starting back up, we wanted to sort of treat this like the beginning of the school year and step back out and reintroduce ourselves to everybody. We are a weekly high school sports show covering obviously games and results when we have them, but as the last couple months have shown us, we're a show that's really dedicated to being a voice of kind of whatever is going on in high school sports at that moment. And to a lot of my shock and surprise, some of our posts that have dealt with non-X's and O's sports-related stuff over the last couple of months has not been met with quite as universal of an embrace as I thought it would. And I think it's very interesting that people tell you what your company and your show is about, despite not having ever been part of this company or of this show. And I just think that people need to know going forward, if you are somebody that's new joining us, because right now there are new freshmen coming into high school. There are kids transferring in that are from out of state. There's a whole birth of new stuff starting with this new school year. And I want just people to know that what you're going to see out of us over the next year as we adapt through this weird couple of months of an off season still into a sprint of a year, but over the next couple of years is we are doubling, if not tripling down, or just going all in altogether on treating high school sports as an ecosystem that has just as much to do with the sport and the result as it has to do with the athletes who are generating those sports and those results. And I respect the fact that not every kid that's going to walk into this studio has any interest in breaking down zone coverage or how their feet rotate, trying to check down on trips receivers or what the 2-1-2 offense or defense looks. Some of these kids just want to come in and talk about Fortnite. We've had some of our greatest moments. I think
ghosts sometimes.
I think ghosts. I think personally our greatest moments are when we've had people convinced to sing or play music. Haley Johnson from Granite Hills played her ukulele on the show. last year or 2 years ago, we had CJ McMillan at Sweetwater say that he was going to put San Ysidro in a casket in the basketball thing, which that seems like a whole different sentence now, given where we are at in San Ysidro being an open division school. But,
they had that one really good freshman last year, wasn't
yeah,
there?
exactly. Yeah, Jerian Dixon.
Yeah, Jerian Dixon, that's what it was.
But I think that there are a lot of you that will initially be caught off guard of why do I keep checking in on this sports show, but they aren't necessarily talking about Granite Hills beating Christian in volleyball and what that means on that league standings, or whether or not Kavika Tua running for 150 yards versus 200 yards is a bigger story than someone else's defense. Like, we will dabble in that. We're not going to steer away from that, but there are going to be a lot of opportunities where you're going to hear high school sports get a voice that it has never had before.
And for those of you who aren't necessarily high school sports fans, it's probably smart to tune in too, because as we've seen in the major leagues this year, Bodie, you've done a good job of keeping everybody updated. There's so many kids that played here that will start, their media career, not careers, but their first times being interviewed, like letting people know who they are here, and then they'll end up in the big leagues. And Bodie's done a great job of like informing people, hey, this guy from this school is now in the Rockies or whatever it may be. So, and we're seeing that too. I mean, Alika Williams was drafted in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, it always surprises me. I mean, and I love following the minor leagues, but you may see someone that went to junior college out of high school, was a late round pick, and they pop up on an MLB roster despite not being a top round pick, and that's awesome to see.
And we're seeing that now with football a lot, and I think we're going to start seeing it with basketball pretty soon. Call my shot on that one. But
I would say also there are a lot of coaches and admin that really, truly have infinitely more interesting stories to tell, a la Doug Peabody last year. When we had him and the Bishop's water polo team in studio, they had just won another CIF championship. This is a man that has more rings than he has fingers. And they wanted to tell us much more about one of their team parents having had cancer and battled that during the year. And if you're telling me that you're the kind of sports fan that only wants me to hound Peabody about what his strategy is in practice going up to another championship game or how he's getting ready for a state tournament, instead of listening to the human side of why was this team wearing pink all season and those kinds of stories, then get out of here. We don't want you necessarily to be an overwhelming fan of ours because you're not going to embrace the way that the high school, like, that's what high school sports is it's sports giving a lot of people some space and some padding to soften up some of the crazier moments in life.
Yeah, if you go down the street, you have Atwell, who one of our best stories ever did. You drop that guy off in Santa Monica, and he'll jog all the way down to La Jolla.
Yes.
I mean, the guy is nuts.
Yes. And do it for cancer research, not just for to raise money for stuff.
Yeah, so.
I mean, Bodie, you have been writing a lot in the last couple of weeks about a lot of these kids, like Tommy said, who have gone on to the pros, but you've also been writing about a lot of kids getting offers who are the new kids. So it's happening at both ends of the spectrum. So I'm not going to go on and on and on about what we are as a show because you'll pick up on the show, but we are something that pushes the boundaries a little bit from what you maybe have ever conceptually heard from a high school sports show. But at the same time, we are also a little bit of a self-aware parody. Like I have a journalism and broadcasting degree from like the most hoity-toity ass school in the game. Tommy went to, although not broadcast degree, he went to another one of the really good broadcasting schools.
Bodie, I did play football, basketball, baseball.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying you didn't get the degree.
No,
you weren't there specifically
I'm
for the program.
Yeah.
Bodie went to Torrey Pines, so he can do no wrong academically or societally. Like, he is just God's gift to this world. Like, we are all decently self-aware of where high school sports ranks in the ecosystem of the broadcast world. And we're not here to take ourselves so seriously that if you want to criticize us, we're going to come clap back at you. We know that we messed things up. I said that Brian Cushing was going to work for us instead of Chad Cushing in a pre-show meeting. Like I said, an NFL linebacker was going to be a photo intern for us. Like,
yeah, we should just promise that.
Yeah, no, I did that with Ozzie not Ozzie. See, I'm calling him Ozzie Guillen. Ozzie Nicholas. I called him Ozzie Newsome in a pre like. We make mistakes.
I almost corrected you by saying Ozzie Newsome.
Yeah, no, we make mistakes. Sometimes we have outdated information that we deal with. Sometimes we don't have stats to deal with, and we're just randomly predicting. We say names wrong. So you will hear times where we get it, that there are multiple outstanding freshmen on the San Ysidro basketball team but you don't need us to tell you. If you need us to tell you that Mikey Williams is really, really good,
Who's that? Never heard
and
of him.
you don't get why Tommy has only ever referenced Jurrian Dixon, then you need to understand that, like, it's not a slight or it's not an intentional, like, oh, we just don't get it. It's we're looking past some of the obvious to try and provide a voice and a context where there are already a million outlets covering the absolute tip of the iceberg, and we don't need to be outlet number 1,000,001 still covering the tip of the iceberg if we can be directly below it, covering everyone else that's jamming and going on to mid-majors and whatnot.
And first of all, what's not a mistake ever, and by the way, for voice to sound ruffled, it's because we have masks on. We haven't seen each other in a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen a part of Bodie's shoe collection.
Oh.
And the ones he's got on today are extremely fresh. I think we need to, every time, with Bodie's permission, every time we do meet up, I think we should throw on the Instagram just a pic of Bodie's kicks and then put the little rate meter with the fire. Yeah.
So at SD Prep Insider,
those
on
are good.
Instagram,
I mean, obviously, you know my favorite are your Jordan 11s, but those are up there. Those are up there. Those are probably my favorite non-basketball shoes that I've seen you wear, because you're mostly a basketball shoe guy. Those are
I mean, in the last few months, I've gotten more into Air Maxes and just trying to see what's out there. And
I like Air Maxes because they make me look taller.
What is going on?
Myself as well.
You got to give you a shot at that, Christian?
No, like it's.
Why is it all wonky?
I don't know. I'm gonna take it again.
I've never seen that before. Yeah, somehow or maybe we're just getting old.
Tommy.
Maybe we're just getting old and we don't know how
Excellent
technology works. I actually don't know how technology works. There's a bunch of stuff that I don't understand. I don't understand how electricity works. I don't understand wind or waves. I don't understand bridges that are built over oceans. That makes zero sense to me at all. What else do I not understand? Oh, what language do dogs think in when they're thinking? These are just all things that no one can explain to me. Why? Oh, how do planes fly? That one. I know that one's been explained to me, but I still don't. It doesn't make sense to me. You can't convince me that's true. So
no, we need an intern right now to rapid fired all of those questions onto the
I got a lot of them. There's a lot of things that make zero sense. Like, how does this phone, if I touch it, it like does stuff? What is going on? Where does that come from? Like there's chemicals in the ground that you've turned into a cell phone, and then it just becomes that.
I mean, rare earth elements interact with electricity in a very specifically programmed way due to electronic currents.
Don't understand light bulbs either. That makes zero sense to me at all. I don't get it.
That's just tungsten heating up really, really hot, right?
Yeah, I don't know. That makes news. Again, I took the classes. I got good grades in classes, believe it or not, but it still conceptually makes zero sense to me.
So how, Bodie, help me distill that down into one poll. Just light bulbs, question mark? Do you trust them?
The one I don't get, the one I literally, no, the one that,
what out of all of that list of stuff
let me tell you, because there's one that I still don't understand. How does the Coronado Bridge, how's it built? How do you get the bridge legs in the water underground? That makes zero sense to me. And it was built like forever ago.
That I kind of agree with.
It drives me insane. I don't understand.
All right, so I'm going to put on the poll. Do you trust the Coronado Bridge?
How does...
Well, sure, I trust it. I just wish I could have seen it being built.
Like you have to hire like scuba divers to go down there and but then you need cement, but cement can't be made in the water.
What are they welding?
Yeah, what are they? And there's no, you're doing it into sand? That can't make any sense to me at all. The sand moves. None of it makes sense.
I assume that it goes down into the bedrock, that they don't use concrete, they use steel framing down there to drill into the rock bed at the bottom of the.
But isn't it just sand? Is there rocks under the sand?
In the project, you know.
My dad's a civil engineer by trade.
Oh, okay.
So he built he didn't physically build them, but he designed all the on ramps and off ramps from the 8 freeway to Mission is it SDCCU Stadium now?
Did he have anything to do with
the Q to me?
Yeah. Did he have anything to do with the 163 at all?
No, I don't think so.
I think am I free to talk?
He worked at Caltrans for like 9 months.
Okay, so I can make fun of the 163.
Can I get the poll? Wait, can I get the poll question first about the Coronado? Just the Coronado Bridge.
Do you understand how it was built?
Yeah. It doesn't make sense that you could build a bridge over water. It makes zero sense to me. And like the Golden Gate Bridge, that's like a huge one. I don't know. When was the Coronado Bridge built? Does anyone know that? It had to be at least 50, 60 years ago, right? Had to be.
Checking.
They didn't even have like calculators. Actually, that's not true. We were on the moon at that point, I think. I don't know. Whatever.
Should we put that on the poll? Which came first, calculators or landing on the moon?
I feel like in Apollo 13, they were doing math by hand, which is crazy. By the way, speaking of that, David Blaine's insane. But I don't know if that's for this show. It has nothing to do with San Diego or sports, but that.
All right, well, let's not necessarily get too far into the self-appreciating
The
weeds.
bridge opened in 1969. There's our answer.
Nice. Oh, same as the Padres.
It's a weird coincidence.
Yeah, maybe it's the people go to the game. I don't know. Nope. What I was saying was stupid.
Okay, so let's get 5 minutes of high school sports in before we say goodbye to everybody. Bodie, you have had the chance to kind of absorb where transfers have gone, and I have no interest in recapping transfers because
it's still happening. I mean,
it's still happening. Yeah. Also, just like we don't know at the high school level what that means until that team actually gets on the field.
When your team runs out, let us know, and we'll see who's there.
Exactly. So you know, though, who has kind of decided to transfer where, who has made some commitments, college and otherwise. With one exception, obviously, of we don't know what Tyler Buckner is doing because there was a report that came out on a Notre Dame recruiting thing that certain people here in San Diego's quote-unquote media scene bid on. He has not declared anything to Helix. He has not made any public decisions either way. So, you know, obviously that takes them from good to state championship.
Was it Tom Loy?
I don't know. I don't remember.
It was Tom Loy. I have a gripe with Tom Loy.
Deal. Do you want me to put that on the poll? Do you have a gripe with Tom Loy?
Yeah, tag him.
But with all that you've seen, you can specifically talk football only if you want, or you can talk all sports. But do you think that we're headed towards at least some semblance of a normal season, or are things going to get wacky in this 2021 year?
I'd like to think it could be pretty normal. I know in terms of Scorebook Live and the other states we've been in recent weeks, we've adjusted our coverage and have been covering some of those. And whether that's Arkansas, Mississippi, Idaho, they've all got going and for the most part have been able to play their games. And you just put in the rules, whether it's only family of players can attend, make sure they sit apart. Do you sell 20% capacity of tickets? Who's allowed down on the sidelines? Things like that. And I think if you follow some guidelines, we can have a pretty normal season.
So I was watching a game that was on TV from Utah, and they had to stop the game in the middle because the fans weren't following the rules, and they had to run over and like tell everyone to obey the rules. So I think it's going to be wacky no matter what. I mean, even if, let's say, like best case scenario, there is a vaccine coming out before the season starts and all that kind of stuff. Distributing it's going to be a problem. It's going to be tough. You can't assume that everyone's vaccinated, so you're going to have some sort of rules like that. So, I mean, hopefully we can have something where it's like, percent capacity and
my understanding logistically is that that's going to be a site-by-site basis.
I would agree.
Is they're going to each decide. So, unfortunately, that's going to be a gentrified-ass decision.
Well, no, I mean, there's some schools that pack the house, and you can't have that, and there's some schools that have, who nobody's there anyway.
Who does? Who packs the houses?
What do you mean? Like at their own stadiums?
Yeah, who does?
Go to the Holy Bowl.
Exactly. I said a gentrified decision.
No, I'm saying
I don't think you're going to see certain school like the whole Sweetwater Conference is massively in a financial crunch. I don't think they're going to spend an extra $1 million to get Castle Park versus Bonita cleared to have 50% capacity. I truly don't think you'll see a ton of places because my understanding of it, Bodie, and I'll let you jump in, is that there are other things cost-wise that, yes, you lose revenue, but you can offset it by not having to bus students from your school to that other school, not having to pay for all of the facilities to the people to be there to stay open. Like, there are budgetary things that I think a lot of schools are going to make the cold, calculated decision of, it would be very nice to have people here cheering on our football team this year, but it does not make logistical sense. Bodie.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think we're going to see a lot of regional and district decisions where I really believe some schools and some games will see pretty close to normal capacity, and at others, I think it may be a case of each player is allowed 2 family members there, something like that. So it'll be interesting as we go forward towards it.
Do you think that's going to affect an actual high school season, though?
I don't understand your argument.
In terms of what you're saying is 11 weeks or 10 games plus playoffs and all that? I mean,
does no fans affect that? Does no fans make that big of a difference at the high school level? Because it does at the
depends what school you're at. If the school normally draws 200 people, I don't think anyone's going to notice. If a school draws thousands of people, then yeah, people will notice. But I think for the majority of schools, it's not going to be that big of a difference, even if it is 50% or 40%, 20% capacity.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And I know some of the private schools, I don't know if there's too many public schools yet, but that have received waivers to begin on campus teaching again. But I would assume those are most of the ones that are going to have pretty normal capacity once things get going.
Given what you guys have seen online about all of these very questionably put together passing league tournaments and AAU basketball and everything, I mean, yeah, we got to shrug our shoulders and be like, I guess it counts as youth sports, but I don't particularly have a ton of respect or love for being out here mask-free doing all this workout stuff. But do you think we're going to see some schools and units coming back into this season in unprecedentedly good shape because they've had such a long off season to get their bodies worked out? They're out there obviously doing the drills and running the routes and working on their arms. Like, are we going to see some pieces that might be more put together than we would otherwise see if the season was underway right now?
Well, I will say this, kids grow when they're in high school. So especially for
I hadn't thought about that.
Especially for football. I mean, some kids hit their growth spurt right around, sophomore, junior year. Maybe they'll be
3 months for a 17. I hadn't thought about it.
No,
it could be a big deal. It would be huge.
That could be literally 2 or 3 inches of height. So yeah, you're going to see kids who are bigger. It's again, especially the underclassmen who are now growing. So you will. I mean, you see kids who are, when they're sophomores, they show up first day and they're like 5'6", and then at the end of the season they're like 6 feet tall. It happens. So you're just going to start the season that big. And the tricky thing is not all schools have weight rooms open. I think most don't. You've got the upper end schools that probably can get away with stuff that others can't. But yeah, I mean the AAU stuff.
It's upsetting.
It's upsetting, but also I think if there's a huge difference between volunteering for your kid to go do something and having the school say your kid can do something. Because if you are allowing your kid to do something, you as a parent are kind of giving away the liability of this kid. My kid might get sick. Whereas if it's a school issue thing, it's almost as if especially for public school, it's almost as if the government saying it's safe to do this, and then the kid gets sick, and then whose fault is it now? So I think with the AAU stuff, I mean, for those parents who want to risk it with their kids, there's really nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do.
Obviously there's nothing we can do, but I can publicly say that I'm disappointed because I'm somebody that has been very socially distant, and we have shut down this show until we've been able to take all the appropriate measures to have good ventilation in here, and we're all distanced. And like, I would have loved to have been doing all the show stuff. I would have loved to have had guests in, but I'm of the mindset of we've already missed so much time. Like,
yeah, I mean, it feels like we're like in the the back, like in the fourth quarter of this thing, and like to screw it up now would be really frustrating.
I would also say that I don't know what people are really getting out of certain chunks of this off-season stuff, because yeah, I'm sure that basketball players are getting better at their jump shot and whatnot, but I think you're really pushing it to the limit of the argument about how beneficial 7-on-7 football really is for a football team. If you're going to get your quarterback that comfortable and throw that many more passes out of a non-rushed pocket, and that many, like, we'll see if it really is that good, because
I think again, for the kids who are going to be seniors, it's not going to matter. It's not like they weren't going to show up in shape in August. You're pushing it back.
No, I'm not necessarily, like, I'm saying they might be in great shape. They might be too tuned in, though, to not having physical press coverage or not having a guy running in their face, because they've gotten an extra 2 or 3 months of this 7-on-7 altered reality. All just hypothetical questions right now at this point. We have September, October, November, December. Like, we have 3.5-ish months even until we start studying up. So, I mean, I don't want to get too lost in the weeds, but I will say this as a final note, Bodie, at least from what I've seen of your feed, it doesn't seem like the recruiting has slowed down. It does seem like, though, 2022 class is getting a little bit more love than 2021 class is right now in San Diego.
Yeah, so, I mean, 2022, I think, is a really good class in general, and then especially come September 1st is when they're allowed to have their more contact with coaches, so I think that in recent memory has blown up. But, yeah, the recruiting process has been really interesting to me, really across all sports at this point, of how coaches are getting their message across and talking with kids about the virtual visits and their ability to, in some cases, even go visit the campus right now. You just can't interact with anyone while you're there, but at least you can get somewhat of a feel for it, especially for the kids that feel it's time to commit and grab a scholarship.
Tommy, any closing notes on what you've been seeing around town, anything like that? We're going to let the people get out of here in just a second.
Yeah, I would say this. If you're a kid in 20, this is the first time I've seen it where there's been this big pop-off, and I think it's because kids can't play right now. When the new class is allowed to be talked to, and it's like become this huge thing. I don't remember it being this big of a deal last year. If you're the process hasn't changed. So if you're a kid who's going to be a senior, don't get frustrated. The way that schools recruit is they look at what positions they need by the year. Maybe they just don't need you this year, but another school does, and they haven't made that decision on their 21 class yet. So don't freak out if younger kids are getting scholarship offers and you're not. It could 100% have to do with what class you're in and what class they're in, and it just the numbers don't work out maybe for you.
And even position-wise, if once the season starts, if you're able to go out and put on film, maybe they go, oh, well, maybe we take one extra guy at your spot this year because he's good enough to take. So just be prepared for the season and put it all out there.
And the majority of the country is in the same boat as you, so no one's taking your scholarship. Just relax.
I think
because some of them aren't.
That's why I'm sorry. I did a visual joke in an audio medium. I rolled my eyes at like nobody's out there being like, oh, we just nabbed every Texas linebacker to fill up all of our roster spots. So we'll be back every week now for the rest of the calendar year, twice a week once the school year starts. Like I said, we got some other changes coming. A lot of big things growing here on our end. I am Christian Pedersen at Mr. CPED. You can find Real Tommy Morris at Real Tommy Morris, spelled correctly, traditionally.
R-E-A-L.
R-E-A-L.
Like a thing that exists.
Bodie Da Silva is at SD Preps. He's the official Scorebook Live reporter for the San Diego CIF section. Folks, I'm going to talk to you next week. Thank you very much for tuning in to San Diego Prep Insider.